Hey y'all, it is Moonlight Cowboy, and today we're going to do something a little bit fun. We're going to make walls into roofs. Now, for those of you who have followed me along the way here, you know that I like to do things unconventionally. I like to make roofs into floors, roofs into walls, yada yada. So this kind of follows that same wavelength. This is going to be something a little bit different, but it's actually not as hard to do as you think, as long as you've been following my channel and maybe you've made some of the blueprints, like for instance, the walls as stairs. And if you've seen any of my tutorials before, you know that I have walls as stairs and then walls as floors. So this kind of follows the same vein. I have tutorials on those, so please look at those tutorials prior, because you're going to need the walls as stairs blueprint in order to do this. And that link is in the description below. So this is where I located this camp. I like this little spot because it's got trees around it. It's still got good skylight. And it's kind of flat. So this is a good spot to build at. It's close to Nuke World on tour. So first thing I'm doing here is I am adding some floors to kind of gauge the distance. I'm going to end up moving those floors around a lot. And then I'm creating these kind of those walls onto the edge with the roofs. And I did this blueprint. Now, if you notice with the blueprint here, I blueprinted that same blueprint, but I made the one that is in the link in the description below. But then I moved the duct down on the blueprint so that way it was like able to sit flat on the roof instead of being submerged into the ground like you would have seen in that video. All you have to do is just place the blueprint and re-blueprint it with the duct. Now, I like to use the abandoned mine diagonal walls because it's easier to remove the vines. As you see right there, I can just kind of go in and pick them away. And like, look, we've already got pretty much the first peak of this build done. And so I'm going to go ahead and destroy some of these walls just so I can get a really nice flush, placement of the next blueprint. So as you see here, I added a couple of tables, and I'm basically going to insert that wall and try and line it up to where the walls are like inside of each other right there. Later, I'm going to remove that extra wall so that way it doesn't really interfere with the build. Because I don't really need it, right? Because there's going to be two walls basically in the same place. But this way I get that perfect alignment. And I use tables to kind of map that out. If I needed to, I could have merged the table down just slightly to get that perfectly flush and going the right direction with the rest of the build. So I'm going to do with the other side. While I'm doing this, I do want to point out that this is a smaller build. I've had people comment, especially recently, that like some of my blueprints are, they would take up a lot of budget. And yes, you are correct. This will take up some budget. But like I always tell people, like build smaller. If you were planning on doing this with like a 17-room mansion using the entirety of your build area, yeah, this isn't going to work. In fact, I don't even know how you would decorate that. But even for like, semi bigger builds like this, you want to do cool things, you're going to need to go smaller in order to fit in with your budget. So anyways, this is one of those that like, yeah, you'd want to have like a smaller build. All of my builds, if you've noticed, are like anatomically correct. Like if you go into one of my builds, it always has a place to sleep. It always has a place to socialize, a little living room area. It always has a bathroom, and it always has a cooking area or kitchen or kitchenette, even if it's not on the inside. I've had a couple of like scrappy builds where it's on the outside. So anyways, that notwithstanding, as you see, I'm changing the walls around just to get an idea of like making sure that they're flush and everything's looking good. I'm not seeing a lot of flickering or anything like that. In fact, I'm not seeing any flickering, so we're good there. And then I'm moving on to the next blueprint. Now, to do this last one, I noticed I moved that duct and I re-blueprinted it. So what I did was I ran a roof over off of that lowest wall. And you'll see this in a minute because I'm going to do it again and I'm going to actually show you in detail. But I ran that roof over a little bit and like off of that bottom wall. And then I removed the middle roof because I had two roofs going. I removed it and then I re-blueprinted that the stairs blueprint so I could go completely flush off of this. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. I just wanted to kind of explain myself first. As always, I'm destroying that first like wall or two right there. And I'm going to do the other side here as well, since I already have the flamethrower on the table. Obviously, I'm going to have to change that wall up back up a little bit. But again, you'll see what I'm talking about with that roof in a second. So, yep, destroying those. Going back over here. And again, like I said, I redid that blueprint so the duck was at the top level instead of at the bottom level. Now it can get a little tricky as you get closer to the ground. So we're going to obviously place this blueprint, and I know I just said that we redid this blueprint to, you know, where the duck was floating up higher than it was before. So before it was at ground level, now it's at the top level. And all I did was I placed that blueprint somewhere and I added a roof to the top, and then I placed the duck at that same level as the roof would be at that top. Now, the problem I'm seeing here, at first, I'm breaking more walls, and this is more for your sake for troubleshooting, but also because I wanted to double check myself too when I was doing this. You know, break more walls, right? If you're not able to place the blueprint, then maybe you didn't break enough walls, or maybe you didn't change the walls to like the abandoned mine set or the corroded concrete set, whatever. So if for some reason that doesn't work, especially when you get closer to the ground, you're going to notice like, oh no, like it's not going to place. Oh my goodness, Moonlight Cowboy, your tutorials suck. Which they might, but that's not notwithstanding. You know, part of the problem could be that you're trying to do it over a foundation. So anybody who's ever tried to place walls on a foundation knows that you can't just place walls there free placed, because what's happening is the game is trying to assume that you are attempting to snap the walls to the foundation, so it's going to come up with an error, like an intersect error or something along those lines. So as you see here, it said cannot place, need support. So you can do a couple of things. Right there, I just removed the foundation so I could place it. Depending on how close you are to the foundation, you could have also placed maybe a mat or rug underneath of it. So you could have placed it that way as well. For me, I'm removing these. I'm removing the foundations here just because I'm going to have to remove them here later anyway to kind of move some walls around when we start placing the walls inside of our structure. But for now, yeah, you just remove the foundation and look, I was able to place it, no problem. So again, those would be the steps. Step one, if you can't place it, you're running it through, you're destroying the wall, converting the wall. Step two would be to remove the foundation or to add a mat or rug to get your foundation in place. So anyways, hopefully you found that part helpful. But as you see, the same process happens here. And I'm just lining it up perfectly. Now I don't have the foundation in my way. I had to move it anyway. I think that's why I moved it. And because I had to get this next layer of walls down, and it wasn't going to intersect with the foundation like that. But the cool thing is, once you destroy these walls, you can snap foundations through it. As you'll see later on, I have all my foundations snapped through. So that's one side. That's mostly done. I'm going to get a little bit lower because I want it to look like it just goes straight into the ground. And I'm just taking the time to remove my vines. And it looks like I'm using a lot of budget right now, but again, once all the vines are removed and everything's in place, I'll probably be at about 50-ish% budget, which isn't all that bad when you're talking about a small build, because I mean, especially with these clean builds, you can decorate the heck out of this camp with, you know, given that there's not going to be a lot of space. I do a lot, not just inside, but like you'll see, like in the finished result, I have a lot of decor outside, a lot of, you know, greenery and green space. But if you see here, I'm also going through and I'm removing those additional walls too. I'm looking for the ones that I don't need. Be very careful doing that, by the way. You remove a wall that you weren't supposed to, you are basically starting over with that section of your blueprint. But yeah, it's looking good so far. You could also, at this point, like, you don't have to do a full, like, I did a full A-frame. I could have stopped there, and then I could have done, like, a different texture on the other side, like maybe a square spot. But see, this is what I was talking about before with the roofs. I went down to the lowest wall, and I removed it. And that way I had that spacing between the roofs, so I can add my blueprint again. So when I was telling you before, that's how I got my roof in place. It was pretty easy to do. I just didn't feel that it was necessary to show you a whole bunch of times. But yeah, the same process kind of goes all the way down. I'm going to destroy that first, couple walls there. It doesn't have to be a lot of them, just the first couple. So that way, the vines on the blueprint, it'll allow you to place without saying that something's intersecting. And these walls are very forgiving. Again, I could use the concrete ones too. I end up switching them off to the concrete ones anyway. That's just how I had it blueprinted. So yeah, all roads lead to Rome, as they say. So here I'm just going to add that blueprint one more time. Again, it's about the alignment. Just taking your time with it and making sure that it's kind of perfect. I'm using that yellow. See it when I see it, like when I'm pushing it back and forth, I see that it, like when it's at like an angle, I always try and fix that. And just take your time, be patient with it. For those on PC, I recommend using controller whenever you're doing this like really technical stuff, or when you're filming. I know a lot of other YouTube builders that also use controllers on PlayStation, or on PC when they're building or filming, just for this reason. Cool, so we've got almost all of them up now for the walls. And I'm going to get my last one in, and then we are going to have the initial structure of the A-frame down for this build, which I'm super excited about. So again, when you make this, the blueprint itself is kind of tricky to make, but once you have it, like, it has versatility. Like, you just have to kind of use your imagination, right? Like, yeah, it's great for stairs, but look, I was able to make this really cool A-frame style, and man, does that look great from the front. It looks good from the back too. It looks good from all angles, but it's very striking when you're walking up on that camp. Now, one other thing I need to do is I need to make sure I'm building a little bit of an underground platform. And I like to use roofs as this because, unlike floors, you can leave the roofs behind, which often I will leave like my power down here and on like one roof square, so that way that the power or the generator isn't showing from above ground. And one of the reasons I came below ground is so I could easily remove the vines that were attached on the one side. Once you get those walls underground, I needed to remove those vines, but also there's a whole series of walls that I don't need because they're not going to show from above ground anymore. So I'm just removing all of those right now. And yeah, that looks pretty grand. So now I'm going to change this out to be the corroded walls. I didn't really have to do that. But the thing is, there's a couple of tricks I'm going to do here later on that it really helps to have them be the corroded walls, because once you break those, the entire middle goes out and they become entirely intangible. They're fantastic walls. One of my favorite sets to use. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding roof platforms so that way I can start burning down these walls. I'm going to break like the majority of them, except for the ones at the very ends at the bottom. And that's going to give me a lot of autonomy to place walls inside of them. So if you notice, I'm using the foundations here. I'm kind of moving them around just a little bit. I keep like one foundation off to the side as like a keystone or like a placeholder, just in case I make a mistake. But because, again, I'm using those corroded walls, I can just snap these like walls in, because these are going to be the walls that I use for like the face of the build. And you can do this a number of ways. Like, you'll see like here in a minute, like I was going to put my door right there where it was kind of poking out. and it was a cool effect, but I didn't end up liking it because I needed room for a bathroom over there. But as you see, you can even snap doors into this thing, and they would have been functioning. Again, I use that space differently, so but I'm just showing you what you can do for ideas. When I'm using glass like this, I don't like to use the full walls very often unless I need it as a door. And that's because these go all the way to the ground rather than the full walls. They'll have like that panel on the bottom. But this is something you want to look out for, right? So if you're not careful, you'll have walls poking out from the top. So what I did was I catwalked away from this whole build, right? Because I'm not doing all this work so I can have walls poking out of the top that aren't supposed to be there, I should say, right? Because the whole roof is going to be walls, so I guess they're all poking out. Anyways, so what I did is I created this kind of this wall placeholder over here because I'm going to run that last wall that's going to be at the top. That's going to sit center instead of sitting like two side by side. There's going to be one in the center, and that will fix this problem. So see, I was able to catwalk back in, and I can just add my centerpiece right there. Now, if you see tiny little gaps here, that's just because of the wall style. You can always switch up the wall style to be something different, so that way you don't have those gaps. Ones that I see work really well are like the log cabin sets. They work really well. Also, I tend to use like variations of sets, so it gives it a nice texture. But see, I moved that doorway over just a touch because I'm going to use that one space as a bathroom. And because I have that center wall in place, this was kind of a cinch. I mean, I just put the rest of the walls in, and I'm done. Now, see, I've got a wall poking out over there if I put the wall like that. So what I'm going to need to do for that one side is I'll just put an angled wall in there. And because it's so close to there, I can use like a colored angled wall, something that's not going to poke out from the side, right? Like the Casino Quarter walls, they work really well because they don't have like an overhang piece at the top. They're great for that. So see, it's because of the way I did this. It's so close that it does cover the gap, but you're not even going to really see the red there poking out. So it's just really nice to have those walls. If you ever get the chance to have the casino set, they are great for that. So what I'm doing now on this other side, I'm going to play with it a little bit because I might want to do things a little different. Like maybe I want to put the walls like, where there's two going up instead of one. I'm showing you how I do this. This isn't what I end up going with. But as you can see here, I am going to get my roof in place because I do want my roof to be centered. Like so, because I'm gonna, I'm not gonna do the whole build out of those walls because otherwise it's just gonna be a ludicrous amount of budget. And yeah, so I have a back room, and this will give me some wiggle room to be able to have like a bedroom or something. Could be a living space. Again, it's all up to taste, right? But for me, it has to meet my specific my specifications on having a living space, a bedroom space, and a kitchen space, right? So anyhow, as you see here, I decided to go just up the middle, just like on the other side. One other thing I like to do too, like in the build like this, it's because of the way I did the walls, it's going to be too narrow to just put a wall straight in. So what I did was I used a blueprint wall. I'm putting it at a slight angle. This does two things. One, it gives me an enclosure over here for a small bathroom. But when we're done, it really makes a cool like effect going down kind of diagonally, and it cuts into those walls above it. Now, I'm also at this point, I'm putting in my items that I'm going to need to decorate with when it's going to be really close to those walls because it might be harder to place later. So while they're still broken, I was putting in those items like the kitchen and stuff, right? And yeah, so the last thing I want to do here is I want to put a light that's hidden up here And so to use that, I kept those top ones broken, and I used conduits. And the conduits will free place, or they'll free float after the other one's removed. So this will be perfectly hidden. And then, yeah, all I got to do is put that there, add my generator, remove the excess conduits, and repair all. And yeah, look, see how well that's lit right there? You don't have that light, showing. And you can't hang stuff off of the bottom of these walls anyway, so that's the perfect solution. And that's kind of it. Like, this was pretty easy to do. Again, once you have the blueprint, it's not super challenging. It is a really cool effect. It's not something you see all the time. I have seen other people do this build. I don't know if they did it the same way that I did it with the blueprint that I used. I know a couple of really amazing Japanese builders that have patented this technique. So, shout out to them. This isn't where I got the idea. I got the idea once I did those stairs. I'm like, why don't I just use those stairs as these? And I was like, oh, you know what? I've seen somebody else do this before. So I know there's a couple of really great builders that have done this. I believe Constructicon is one that has done this, but there's a couple out there that have done it. It looks really amazing. And hopefully I was able to do it justice myself. So thank you so much for watching. Y'all stay blessed and have a blessed day.